What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. I'm Joe Nissom, and as always, with me is my brother from another mother, Mr. David Fuchs, who
Hmm.
is freshly cut. His beard looks good.
Thank
He's
you
ready.
for noticing that.
Always guy. No,
Yeah,
I will always notice.
yeah.
So, what's up, man? How you been?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good week. I mean, David and I took a 1 week hiatus. I went and got myself some LASIK surgery. Best thing I've ever done in my life, by the way.
Yeah,
Highly recommended if you wear glasses or contacts.
I do wear contacts and I'm like seriously considering it. I've been putting it off for like 10 years now, but I eventually have to do it.
So, you know what's funny is like they told me like you could go back to work the next day, and a lot of people do. And I was like,
Really?
what? I'm just gonna take the day off. And I'm glad I did. But what was crazy is they gave me an eye mask to wear so you don't rub your eyes. And they're like, you have to keep it on the entire day. You can take it off the next morning. And I got the surgery done on Thursday. So on Friday, I flip it, I take off the eye mask, I can see perfectly. And I'm like, holy crap, I could go back to work today. But I don't want to stare into a computer screen all day.
Yeah.
But it it's kind of incredible how fast,
That's nuts.
and like the pain is minimal. Like your eyes
Yeah,
feel a little crappy for a couple hours and then they feel fine. But
yeah.
it did burn a portion of your eyes off. So, you know, that whole thing. But
Right.
let's talk a little bit about some of the nuts and bolts of studying. At this point, everybody's kind of probably in full swing in terms of studying for this exam cycle, and I think everybody's getting to that point where you're kind of starting to wonder, am I doing the right thing? What should I be focusing on? What am I, is what I'm doing correct? Am I not doing this correctly? And one of the things that you and I have talked about on previous casts, and that we even just kind of chat when we're chatting before the show and after the show, and even when we're just talking about CFP in general, is just because you have a lot of different study tools, does it give you the right to use all of them? You know, and I think a lot of people, it's a luring thing where you're like, you have flashcards and you have these short notes and you have cue banks and you have videos and then you have shorter videos and you have longer videos. And any platform is going to provide 10, 12 study tools, even some of it where like some of the audio flashcards, there's audio, there's audio that you can listen to in the car when you're on the train. And
You
the
can listen
question,
to this.
you could listen to this, of course. The question becomes, what do I do? Like, what do I actually end up focusing on? And I know this is something you talk to a lot of people in your office that you work with. For those of you who don't know, David is a practicing advisor, so he's not like me, who's purely on the education side. So it's always nice to hear from somebody who's actively practicing and in an office with younger people,
Mhm.
um, even some people who have been in the industry for a while and are taking the exam. It doesn't discriminate by experience. What do you typically tell people when who are coming to you and saying, I got all this Brett Denko tools, or I got all these Kenzan tools, or the Dalton tools, or the Biff tools. What do I do now? Because most platforms give you a whole bunch of things, but don't always necessarily lay out what to do. So,
Mhm.
what's your typical advice to somebody new in your office who are saying, "Hey, man, I know you passed the CFP recently. What do I do?"
I mean, I think you and I both agree on this. Kind of keep it simple.
Mm.
Don't try and do like all these different things. Like you just named like 9 different methods to, prepare. Whether it's like everything you just laid out, physical flashcards, like digital flashcards, audio, this, this Q bank, that book, whatever. you're gonna just kind of overwhelm yourself, and you're not gonna like, yeah, you have all these tools, and you probably naturally think that you have all these tools, like how can it go wrong? Like it's only going to be good for you, but I just think like you get overwhelmed, and you're much better off kind of keeping it simple and like making your plan, whatever your plan is, utilizing the tools that you have, and using those to kind of get you to where you want to go ultimately, which is to, pass the exam. So, I think kind of what we call it is kind of learning by subtraction. That's kind of like the theme, the overall theme. And to break that down, which we'll obviously get more into it, it's, keep it simple, come up with a roadmap, use tools specifically, and you'll get to where you want to go.
I agree. And I'll give even more specific advice here. I think 3 tools max.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, like a Q bank, flashcards, and
Book.
what would the third be? And a book. Right, exactly. That's it.
That's
And
it.
yeah.
And I think it's like, you ever see somebody on their phone where they have like 8 different apps that they message people on,
Oh my God.
right?
Yeah.
Like you know this more, like people they'll have like messages on text, email, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and you're
All this shit.
like, how do you even manage that so much? Like, what happened? It was kind of crazy because it was like text was so revolutionary, and I think this is kind of the lure of having a lot. I think sometimes when you have less, you do more with that less, right? Like, and I talk
A
about
hundred
this
percent.
even with money. Like, you know, me and my girlfriend talk about this all the time. She was like, Joe, I make so much more than my parents ever made. How the heck did they raise 2 kids? It's like
Huh.
they made so much happen with so little because they were creative, they were inventive, and there wasn't 100 different distractions to
Mhm.
spend the money. It's just like we can't.
There's like, let's just focus on like raising the kids
Exactly.
and being the most efficient, and you know maximizing that, as opposed to focusing on like all this other stuff that can get in the way. And I think kind of what we're trying to say is, if you spread out over multiple different, we'll call them tools or methods or whatever, you're going to run yourself thin. You're
Right.
better off kind of focusing on one thing and mastering that.
Right. And if you're a practicing advisor or paraplanner, or even if you're new to the industry, you're going to see this happen with clients, right? Clients come in and they're all flustered because they're like, every time they read about an investment, they went and invested in it. And
Mhm.
they end up with this mishmash of crap. And I remember clients would come in all the time. They're like, well, I have an account at American Funds and one at Vanguard and one at Schwab and one at Ameritrade and
Yeah, it's
one
crazy.
at Binance and one at Coinbase and one here and one here and one here. You're like, it was like every time they read of an investment, so they tried to spread a little bit of money everywhere. And they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and now I'm totally overwhelmed because I don't know if I'm making money or losing money. And now I don't even
Yeah.
know if I'm doing is worth anything. But I invested in a whole bunch of things that were quote unquote good. Again, does that serve your purpose?
Mhm.
And oftentimes the road that is the most boring is usually the most effective.
Mhm.
Meaning,
Yeah.
like, go back and use your book and write in it and highlight in it until you can't possibly write in it anymore.
Mhm.
And use your flashcards and write all over your flashcards, because just having those tools are enough. You don't need
Yeah.
more,
Right. Right.
right? And I think that if you focus on those things and you take the hard road, meaning read that over and over again, and I'm going to share with you the most important secret. There isn't a better way. There isn't. It's hard. There's just not a better way. And a lot of us will look for an easier way to do things. There isn't a better way. It's just hard. And I think the second that you acknowledge that this process is hard and it sucks and there's ups and downs to it, is the sooner that you'll be able to manage more of those ups and downs. So I think that doing it in a particularly boring way doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just boring. It's studying. It's not exciting. It's not like going out on a Friday night and being at a club. This is not exciting stuff. However, it's very, very effective and will get you to your end goal. It just doesn't need to be all over the place. So hunkering down into 2 or 3 study tools it's less overwhelming.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me. That's my biggest like for what support of this whole conversation is it's less overwhelming. That's going to allow you to free up your mind to focus on what you need to focus on.
I couldn't agree more. And more importantly, as the questions get harder on CFP, you will be trained to sit there and be patient because you're not flailing going to one study tool to another study tool. You're sitting there and staring at the information until you can start to draw a connection. And you need to train your brain to be patient enough by looking at one thing, how to figure it out and be resourceful with just that one tool. If you go from flailing from one tool to another tool to another tool, you're also training your brain to flail all over the place. And that's exactly what you'll do on the exam.
Right.
Remember something. When most people do not rise to the occasion, and you should not expect to rise to the occasion, you're going to fall to the level of your studying. If your studying is all over the place, your exam taking will be all over the place. If your studying is patient and determined and committed, your exam effort will be the same. So I think that's a really important point, is that if you're training that way, where every time something gets hard, you don't just sit there and stare at the question and try to figure it out, and you just click on an answer and give yourself the way out, that's exactly what's going to happen on exam day. So hopefully that's helpful, guys. Keep it simple. Couple study tools. Don't overcomplicate it. Okay, guys, we will see you in our next video. As always, feel free to reach out to David or myself.